Okay, so Man of Steel wasn't a very good movie. It was too flat, too messy, and too miserable. I really didn't enjoy it. But I would watch Man of Steel 1,000 times if it meant I never had to watch Batman v Superman again. Oh my god. Oh my god. My expectations of this movie when I saw the trailer were low. But somehow, it turned out to be so much worse than I could have possibly imagined. So, before I talk about this movie, let's head over to Gotham. Oh what? You didn't know it was right next door? Let's just get into the story, because the less time I have to talk about this piece of shit, the better. So, Batman v Superman takes place 2 years after Man of Steel. Superman is being framed for murder after he rescues Lois from a terrorist hideout and struggles with being seen as a threat by the public. One of the people who feel that he is a threat is none other than the Dark Knight himself, Bruce Wayne. After witnessing the destruction caused by Superman in Man of Steel firsthand, Bruce holds him accountable for it all and is determined to bring Superman to what he considers justice. But Bruce Wayne isn't the only one concerned with Superman's lack of accountability, as young business tycoon Lex Luthor also wants to bring Superman down. Clark himself starts to learn of the terror at night known as Batman and wants him to end his reign of overly brutal justice. These two soon become determined to stop the other, and the movie builds to the final showdown between the Man of Steel and the Dark Knight. So, what's wrong with this movie? Well, the shorter question is, what's right with this movie? Because there's very fucking little. I'll start with the positives. This will take a hot minute. The first positive is the opening. The opening is obviously Zack Snyder trying to add a purpose to the destruction shown in Man of Steel by letting the audience see it from Bruce Wayne's perspective, and for the most part, I think it works really well to establish his motivation for wanting to take down Superman. In fact, it probably would have been better if the scenes from Man of Steel that focused on the ground level people fleeing from the destruction were put here instead. Not to compare it too much to the MCU, but Avengers 2: The Age of Ultron did have a lot of destruction in it. The difference is that it didn't constantly focus on people suffering or the body count. They saved that stuff for Captain America: Civil War, and it works perfectly to feed Tony Stark's motivation for wanting to fight Captain America. It would have benefited Man of Steel if they did something similar here, but the movie had a relatively solid opening. The next positive is Ben Affleck as Batman. Affleck's casting caused a lot of controversy because people just couldn't see him in the role. Part of that was also due to Affleck's past failure as a superhero with Daredevil. Fans used that as a reference to what he could bring to the table here, but I didn't. After seeing him play a similar character in Gone Girl, I actually had faith in him. I mean, who could have possibly thought that Ben Affleck could play a billionaire playboy hypocritical douchebag? It's like getting Eminem to play a rapper from 8 Mile Road. What a fucking stretch that is! And it turns out I was right. Ben Affleck is a great Batman. As Bruce Wayne, he is stern, driven, and smooth. And as Batman, he's quiet, reserved, and a total badass. When I saw the first images of what his suit looked like, I wasn't impressed, especially with the little ears, since we haven't had those in live action since Adam West. But to Snyder's credit, the way the film is shot makes Batman look incredibly intimidating. He looks like he jumped straight out of the Arkham games. He just owns that suit. Some fans had issues with Batman killing people and using guns, and I can understand that, but to me, there's always been two different but equally enjoyable versions of Batman. The first version is a Batman who is true to his morals and would sooner surrender his cowl before betraying his convictions. This is the Batman we see in things like the animated series, Batman Beyond, and the Dark Knight trilogy. The second version is a Batman who has been worn down from years of dealing with a corrupt city. This version has slowly given up on his principles for efficiency and is so obsessed with his duty that he would rather die than give it up. This is the Batman we see in the older comics and the Tim Burton films. Both of these are two sides of the same character, and I like either version. In a lot of ways, Affleck's Batman seems like an older version of Keaton's Batman. Keaton had no problem killing people in the '89 film, and especially in Batman Returns. nor did he really have that much of a problem using guns of some kind. This just feels like the next natural step for that interpretation, which I think works well given the tone that this movie is going for. Affleck plays the role very reserved, but also manages to have little mannerisms that complement the playboy persona, like when he's pretending to be drunk and checking out girls at Lex Luthor's party.
Well, pretty girl, bad habit, don't quote me, alright?
His motivations for wanting to destroy Superman are totally justified. With everything that Superman did in the last movie, how could you not root for him? That stare he gives Superman in the opening is so fucking intense. It says a lot of things without a single word. I can feel all the anger and frustration just from that stare, and Affleck's acting throughout the movie is perfect. There are some flaws to him, but I'll get to that in my negatives. Another positive is Jeremy Irons as Alfred. He is fantastic. He looks, sounds, and acts like the perfect counterpart for this Batman. This is the Alfred who has seen some shit and has been worn down as well. However, unlike Batman, he's not worn down from fighting crime. This Alfred seems to be worn down from years of watching the only family he has slowly become consumed with rage and frustration. He's watched the innocent young boy that he took care of grow into a killer who's on a path for self-destruction. This is further shown when he points out to Bruce how cruel his fear and anger towards Superman have made him. It's great. I also love how active he is in the movie. He's not just a butler who brings Bruce his tea. In fact, this Alfred is so badass that Bruce Wayne brings him tea. This Alfred isn't afraid to get his hands dirty. This guy has seen some shit and he's great. One of my favorite interpretations of Alfred. I never heard of Gal Gadot before this movie. I never watched any of the Fast and Furious movies because I am not 12. But other than how small she is, I thought she certainly looked the part, and fortunately she gets a pretty solid performance here. Her accent actually adds to the character's heritage. Her theme is so fucking cool, I just get hyped every time I hear it. It makes her appearance sound epic. And the last positive I want to bring up is the action, particularly any of the action scenes involving Batman. All of those are great. Batman's fighting tactic is just brutal. It's awesome. It doesn't feel as choreographed as the Nolan films. It feels like this Batman is just making shit up as he goes, and part of me loves how fucking pissed off he seems the whole way through. He stabs this motherfucker right in the shoulder and throws this guy through a wall for no reason other than the fact that he can. Fuck yeah. So those are all the positives. It's a pretty short list though, because now we're going to the negatives. The first obvious one is Superman. God damn it. God damn it, Zack. How did you find a way to make Superman even more miserable than he was in the last movie? Once again, Henry Cavill turns in a good performance only to be wasted by a script written by an angsty teenager. Superman almost never smiles and just mopes the whole fucking movie. He is somehow more brooding than the Dark Knight. His scenes are just filler. He wants Batman to stop being a vigilante who thinks he's above the law. Really, motherfucker? This movie should have been called Pot v Kettle because Superman is the biggest fucking hypocrite ever. At least Batman isn't crashing satellites or destroying the city. Through the majority of the movie, Clark is either brooding because everyone hates him or being mad at Batman because he has a butt crack for a chin. That's it. And he doesn't do anything to make himself look better. He violently threatens people in this movie.
The bat is dead. Bury it. I'll take you in without breaking you, which is more than you deserve. Stay down! If I wanted it, you'd be dead already. Consider this mercy.
I'm sorry, is this fucking injustice? It feels like that's what we're going for. This feels like an evil Superman. Oh, but he pouts a couple of times. Sorry, Muffin, you want to go blow up the Capitol, buddy? We'll get ice cream afterwards. Even when he's saving people, it's miserable. Superman saving people should be awesome and awe-inspiring.
Look, everyone, Superman's coming to save the day!
Now every time Superman saves people, I just want to slip my wrist. In fact, for the rest of this review, I'm going to use the word save as a substitute for any overt violence coming from Superman. Don't worry, Superman isn't the only character from the first movie who somehow got even worse. Lois Lane is once again every bit the tool she was in the first movie. She still teleports from location to location to do nothing other than advance one of the many side plots. This is even worse because her storyline is dedicated to her investigating who framed Superman for the murders in Kenya, but everyone in the audience knows it wasn't him, and the big shocking conclusion that she comes to is that Lex Luthor was behind it. Really? You don't say! The villain of the movie is exactly who we knew it was? You really dedicated her entire side story to a conclusion that everyone knows before they even watch the movie? Thanks! Can you please take an hour and a half to explain to me who robbed the bank in The Dark Knight? I have no idea! Please teach me, Daddy Snyder! Lex Luthor in this movie is played by Jesse Eisenberg, and I just have one question. What is this? What the fuck is this? I'll tell you what it is. It's a fucking cartoon. Good God. I don't know who is responsible for this, but they need to be saved. Superman style. Watching this performance was like watching a real-life nightmare, one that I can't wake up from. Lex Luthor is not this dweeby, uppity, twitchy college philosophy student. You aren't even close. He is a cold, calculating, smart businessman. Gene Hackman was far from accurate, but he felt like a character. This feels like an insult. Even if you want to use that bullshit excuse that he's the true Lex Luthor's son, or you want to say, oh, just ignore the comics and take the character for what it is, it's still horrible. He has no reason to be in this movie. He's allegedly this brilliant puppet master who's able to manipulate people into his schemes, but the way he does that is not because he's brilliant, it's because everyone else is stupid. He forces Superman to fight Batman by kidnapping his mother, which negates so much of the actual Batman-Superman fight because Superman isn't doing it for any moral reason, he's doing it to save Martha.
Why did you say that name?
Oh, I'll get to that. I guess it's needed because without that, Superman literally has no reason in this movie to fight Batman, but you could have just written Lex Luthor out of this movie entirely and dedicated more time to giving us a real reason why Batman and Superman actually decide to duke it out. And if you got tired of the religious references in Man of Steel, Eisenberg jerks off to that shit every time he is on screen. In fact, this whole movie is even more Jesus-y than the last.
God. Christ!
God's.
God's the devil's savior. Jesus. God. God.
And his motivations become even more confusing in the final act when he creates Doomsday. Oh, is that a spoiler? Too bad. They spoiled it in the trailer. Also, this movie sucks. Don't see it. I'll spoil everything. Save yourself. Anyway, if you want to kill Superman because he's supposedly a god, why would you make an even stronger god that you could never control? What was the plan here, Lex? Yay! Superman is dead! Now what are you gonna do about the dead baby murder mill going around blowing up the city? Also, Lex is never intimidating. He's always annoying, and his little convoluted plan is so specific that if one thing went wrong, none of it would work. If they just introduced him as someone who fears Superman's power and proposes weaponizing the kryptonite, I could accept that. I would still find him annoying, but he would at least serve a point. But he's just a character that didn't benefit the story. This is called Batman v Superman, not Superman v Batman because Lex has his mommy. We want to see these two fight because of their different ideologies, not because they were tricked. I'm going to talk about all the stories in this movie now. This film is filled with 5 side stories and only one good one. The only good story is Batman trying to take down Superman. That's the only one that makes any sense and fuels his character. The rest of the stories are pointless. Lex Luthor's story to take down Superman makes no sense. Superman's story about wanting to stop Batman is hypocritical and pointless because at the end of it all, he just fights against his will anyway. Lois Lane's little investigation into LexCorp is so obvious that all it does is eat up screen time, and Wonder Woman's story is so non-existent that her entire appearance is nothing more than a trailer for the Justice League movie that DC obviously can't wait for. Not only are these other 4 stories bad, but they just don't make any sense, and before any of you cunts say, oh, the extended edition explains it better. No, it fucking doesn't. I watched both cuts at the same time, and the extended cut does almost nothing to improve the film. It makes the movie more bloated than it needs to be. It extends scenes that don't need to be extended at all. Thank God I have a few more seconds of Lois being kidnapped. I always wondered if the kidnappers put Lois in a van or a dune buggy. Thank you for answering my questions, Daddy Snyder. And the extended cut also added some much needed blood and swearing.
Yeah? Well, what do you want? Yeah? Well, what the fuck do you want?
Oh, thank you, Zach. That adult edge saved everything. Thank you for treating me like the 14-year-old boy that I am. The only thing this edition does that feels important in any way is add a scene where people explain who Batman is to Clark Kent and add a few more scenes of Lex's plan. But these still suck because Lex is awful and Superman is a hypocrite, so no, nothing is better, but just for you guys, I'll go over the story from the extended cut. First, why do we need this subplot of Lex framing Superman for murder in Kenya? I think all the destruction caused in Man of Steel is more than enough to give the public a reason to dislike Superman. And why would anyone think Superman killed these people who were shot? Superman doesn't shoot people. Why would he need to? I mean, if you went to the terrorist base and there were buildings dropped on everyone, then I get why you would suspect Superman. But other than that, I can't see how this would fool people. The extended cut shows them being set on fire, I guess to make it look like they were burned by Superman's laser eyes. But even if they were burned, the autopsy would still find bullet fragments in them. Thanks for teaching me that, Forensic Files. In fact, fuck this review. I'm gonna go watch Forensic Files now.
South Pasadena, California, a town of only 3 square miles, located just north of Hollywood.
Oh fine, I'll continue. But yeah, this whole framing plot is not necessary. You could cut it out entirely, which is really annoying because they dedicate so much time to this. They just want people to be mad at Superman for something. They have scenes dedicated to a former Wayne employee who lost his family and both his legs because of the Superman Zod fight, and that's all we need. We don't need this overly complicated crap. The only weird thing about this guy is that he goes to jail for misdemeanor vandalism. Like, the city has the ability to rebuild itself in 2 years but doesn't have any paint remover? I said before that I had a few issues with Batman. A minor one is his Batman voice changer.
Well, here I am.
I don't really understand why everyone feels the need to do this. The whole point of the Bruce Wayne persona is that he is so characteristically different than Batman that people would never connect the dots even if they did sound exactly the same.
Bruce Wayne is Batman!
That's absurd. I know Bruce Wayne. If he's Batman, I'm the King of England.
And people say I'm crazy.
And with how little Batman talks in this movie, it seems pointless, but at least it's not
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
that. The other thing I hate about Batman is that he is dumb. Like, really dumb. The world's greatest detective can't figure out that he's being manipulated by Chuckles the ass clown here? Really? He can't look at this twitching, mumbling school shooter who is after kryptonite and think, kill God.
Yeah, I should probably keep an eye on this guy too.
To be fair, Superman is stupid as well. I love this scene right after the Kenya scene where he says,
I didn't kill those men.
which, sure, you didn't kill the people who were shot, but I don't think that this dude you crashed through 4 brick walls is going to be testifying anytime soon. We get a brief glimpse of Jason Todd's Robin suit with Joker writing on it, and it's a great way to fuel this darker version of Batman. My only complaint with this is that the suit is really dark and the shot is so short that it took me a second to realize that that was a Robin suit. The whole Batman branding criminals is a nice little touch to show how bitter and angry he is now, but why is this a death sentence? Like, the extended cut literally adds a totally pointless scene of someone with the Bat brand being stabbed to death in prison. Why? All the brand means is that you were caught by Batman. Is it really that big of a deal? So if you got caught by Batman and not branded, then you're fine? I don't get it. Is it so that Lex could have people kill inmates with the brand so Superman could have a reason to dislike Batman? Well, that's pointless because Batman's not directly killing these people. The only person we see with it that gets killed is a sex trafficker, so I'm not exactly sympathetic. And how would they even know who had one? The dude's uniform is covering the brand. And what would Lex do if Batman wasn't branding people? Then what? Lex wants Superman dead, and Batman wants Superman dead. Batman wants kryptonite, and Lex has kryptonite, and Lex Luthor knows that Batman wants it. So why the fuck doesn't Lex Luthor just give Batman the kryptonite to kill Superman? If you're going to include Lex Luthor at all in this Batman v Superman story, why not just set it up that Lex and Batman want to kill Superman for different reasons, and by the end of it, Batman changes his mind and Lex doesn't, and now wants to kill them both. Then you have a plot to use in Man of Steel 2, which is probably never going to be a thing. But no, let's dedicate a bunch of scenes to this stupid plan. Clark is a terrible reporter. I don't mind him not knowing who Bruce Wayne is. Like, okay, it's a little weird, but whatever. But why the fuck is he asking this drunken playboy millionaire about his opinion on Batman and kind of giving Bruce shit about it? Who the fuck does that? That's like going to a child's pageant and asking one of the kids,
ISIS is responsible for countless beheadings and is threatening the freedoms of the world. Don't you think we should nuke those fuckers and burn their corpses to a cinder?
Ben Affleck plays this scene very well, but of course he gets interrupted by Jar Jar Jerkoff over here. This party scene is the first time we get introduced to Wonder Woman, and she doesn't do anything other than steal Bruce's car. She has a better introduction in a later scene where she talks to Bruce Wayne, and their chemistry is so good that I feel like they could violently fuck at any moment. One of the worst things in this movie is the constant dream scenes. There are more dream scenes in this movie than Inception, and they are 100% pointless. One's a cheap jump scare, and another one is Batman waking up in Resident Evil Extinction, then he wakes up to what's supposed to be the Flash yelling at him, and then he wakes up again. This is where I wonder what the fuck is even happening. The editing is so awful that we just had a dream within a dream, and this Flash introduction is laughable.
Am I too soon?
It gets followed up by another excellent scene with Bruce and Alfred. Are you starting to notice a pattern? They are the only ones with good scenes. We had this action scene where Batman tries to steal the kryptonite from Lex Luthor, but it's pointless because he doesn't get it here. He gets it later off screen. If he can stealthily get it later, why does he make such a violent, obvious show of it here? And if Lex Luthor wants Batman to get it, why not just let him get it? The only reason this scene exists is so that Superman can show up and threaten to save Batman. The scene where Lex Luthor blows up the Capitol is a little different but equally as terrible in both cuts. He hides a bomb in this guy's wheelchair and kills everyone. Look at how much Superman cares. But there's no reason for him to do this. In the theatrical cut, no one ever really accuses Superman of doing it, so why bother at all? The extended cut brings up that people think Superman did it, but it also shows Superman taking people out of the burning building. So what were you trying to do here? You undercut the scene that you added. It's like Snyder didn't know which way he wanted to follow up this scene, so he just filmed two different outcomes and then used them both anyway. It doesn't even fuel Batman's anger towards Superman. How did you manage to take something as extreme as blowing up the Capitol and downplay it so much? Superman goes off to brood on some mountains? Seriously, is this the only way this guy knows how to deal with bad stuff? He talks to Ghost Dad over here, and it means nothing in the grand scheme of things, but it is the only time Costner ever sounds like an actual father, so take that for what it's worth. Of course, Superman's mother gets kidnapped, and we never get told how Lex Luthor knows Superman's secret identity. I mean, I know the glasses aren't the best disguise, especially in a realistic setting, but I don't believe for a second that Zuckerfucker could figure it out. By the way, do you guys like all the nicknames I'm giving him? Not only do we never get explained how he finds out who Superman is, we never find out how he knows who Batman is. He's been sending Bruce Wayne checks with mean things on them like the cowardly cunt that he is, but Bruce doesn't see them until like 5 minutes before Superman and him fight, so what's the point? Why does Batman shine his own signal? Why would he think Superman would answer to the bat signal? And how does Superman know who Batman is? They had that one scene where he heard that Alfred was talking in Bruce's ears, but is that really all it took to figure out? So, Lex wants Superman to go over to Gotham and save the fuck out of Batman's face. The 5-year-old writer of this movie couldn't come up with a logical reason for Superman to want to fight Batman, so he has Superman be forced to do it. This further shows what a bad start Man of Steel was and how they shouldn't have immediately followed it up with this film. This team-up movie should have come after a Man of Steel sequel that gave us a Superman that we liked and wasn't a total hypocrite. We're near the climax at this point, and there is still somehow an hour left of film in the extended cut. Good fucking God. I do love how Batman somehow knows Wonder Woman's email address, and I appreciate that this movie has such contempt for me that they show me a trailer for Justice League. Thank you for dangling the shiny keys in my face, Daddy Snyder. Can I have my fucking lolly now? Cause you think I'm a child! This whole film is so busy setting up other movies that it forgets that it has to work as its own movie. Boy, does that sound familiar. When we finally get to the Batman and Superman fight, it's cool, I guess, but it's so one-sided. Batman is kicking Superman's ass. Obviously, he needs the kryptonite to weaken Superman, but couldn't they have found a way to have these two on par with each other at any point? It never feels like they are evenly matched. Batman is winning when the kryptonite is in effect, and Superman is winning when it's not. Can't there be a point where the kryptonite weakens Superman to the point where he's as strong as Batman and they have an evenly matched fight for a bit? Wouldn't that be more fun? I especially hate this little moment where Batman is like, "Oh, don't hurt me." Like, yeah, I always imagine Batman being a little bitch in a fight that he started. The worst part of this movie is that this fucking fight is less than 10 minutes long. The title fight of the fucking movie is shorter than this fucking review. Are you kidding me? Do you know what that means? Freddy vs. Jason is a better fight movie than this. You made me wait through almost 2 hours of pointless scenes for this? That's like going up a 300-foot roller coaster for a 10-foot drop. This movie is like getting a hand job from a double amputee. And why do they stop fighting? Because their mommies have the same name. Oh, fuck off. Really? Batman, one of the smartest, most complex, and interesting characters, gives up his totally logical reasoning for hating Superman because their moms have the same name. Has Bruce never encountered anyone else named Martha in the world? And why would Superman say his mother's first name? Save Martha! Who does that? Wouldn't he just say, "Save my mom"? I think Batman would still ask a few follow-up questions if he heard that. I do love that Lois shows up here just so she could tell Batman who Martha is. Like, yeah, we needed her for that. Superman couldn't just say it. And then afterwards, Batman immediately doesn't want to fight Superman. The entire end of this fight can be summed up with,
Did we just become best friends? Yup!
Batman goes off to save Martha Kent, and we get a pretty awesome scene where he murders all of Lex Luthor's men, and to the extent it cuts credit, it's even better here. And Superman goes off to Lex Luthor just for Lex Luthor to make Doomsday. The rest of the climax is so boring. It's just these two trying to fight this mindless monster. It's made more frustrating that Doomsday's interesting backstory that could be its own movie has been reduced to a carbon copy of Nuclear Man's backstory from Superman 4. The funniest part of this fight is Snyder's horrible attempt to justify this level of destruction by constantly letting us know that this area is abandoned. I'm sure that none of these buildings had janitors or electricians or anyone in them. This is like Saban's editing of Dragon Ball Z.
Too bad it's Sunday. Those buildings would have been filled up tomorrow.
Lois Lane takes the kryptonite staff and for no reason at all throws it in this pool of water. This is one of the few times in any movie where I said out loud, "What are you even doing? Why are you throwing this staff away?" Batman isn't trying to kill Superman anymore, and even if you thought he was still going to, what, you don't think Batman can fucking swim? You don't think he'd notice the glowing green water? And then later, out of nowhere, she suddenly goes back to get it and has to have Superman drag her out of the water. Keep in mind that she has been alone the whole Doomsday fight and has no way of knowing that the kryptonite staff could hurt Doomsday. She goes back for the staff like she forgot her car keys. Oh, and Wonder Woman shows up in this fight. Sorry if that feels like an afterthought. It's an afterthought in the movie too.
She with you?
I thought she was with you.
Why would you think she is with Superman? They have never interacted up till this point. And I've always imagined Wonder Woman being dressed in a nice shit-colored brown instead of the red, yellow, and blue she actually wears. I'm starting to think that Daddy Snyder has a problem with rainbows and coloring books. Like, he gets fucking pissed whenever he sees a pack of Skittles. Batman does almost nothing the entire Doomsday fight, which, I mean, I get because he doesn't have any superpowers, but he's just fucking standing there like a jerk-off. We have this totally pointless Superman death fake out, only for them to actually kill Superman off in the dumbest fucking way. Rather than an epic fight where Superman is slowly worn down from the immensely powerful Doomsday, he goes off to save the shit out of Doomsday with the kryptonite spear, and rather than just get the fuck out of the way and let the spear do its job, he hangs around so he can get impaled by him. Why didn't he just throw the spear full force while Doomsday was restrained? If you want to say it would weaken Superman and he couldn't, then why didn't he just give the spear to Wonder Woman? She's proven to be strong enough to hold her own against Doomsday, and clearly kryptonite won't hurt her. They really did something as iconic as the death of Superman in the second movie of their franchise. They really had the balls to build up the Justice League in the same movie where they killed off the most iconic member of it? Are you for fucking real? Oh, and what are you trying to reference here, Daddy Snyder? It's just so fucking subtle! The extended cut shows Noodlehair the Magnificent being arrested and gives us a little glimpse of Steppenwolf, like, oh yeah, that helps Justice League. They shave Lex's head as if he's now anything like how he's supposed to act. We get the Superman funeral, which means nothing. In fact, This whole sequence proves how stupid everyone is when they show that Clark Kent died the exact same day as Superman and put his picture in the news. Really? No one can connect the fucking dots here? Bruce Wayne says at Clark's funeral,
I failed him.
how? He asked you to save Martha, and you did. End of story. I'd say you did a pretty good job. And for no reason, Batman wants to assemble a team of people to hang out in his treehouse. If he saw the Steppenwolf hologram, it would be one thing, but he didn't. And one of the last things we get to see in this movie is this neutered cat fucker doing his best doorbell impression. This isn't a conclusion, this is an autopsy report. Leaving the theater after seeing this movie was like leaving a funeral. Not Superman's funeral, no. This was the funeral for the entire DCEU. This movie did so much damage to the entire franchise. Not only did it flat out ruin Superman's character, but they killed him off completely. They made Batman a total idiot. They crammed a bunch of references to movies that don't even exist yet. They wasted Doomsday. They did everything wrong. The final score for Batman v Superman is a 2 out of 10. I hate this fucking movie. I hate it so much. There is almost nothing redeemable about it other than Affleck's Batman and Iron's Alfred. I can barely count Wonder Woman because she is so tacked on. Everything this movie does is the most misguided type of fan service. They were worried that this movie would be too smart for people, and that was the biggest joke of them all. This movie is the thinking man's movie for men who don't think. Since the DCEU has been broken beyond repair, that'll be it for December. Thank you guys for sticking around for this, and... Wait. There's more movies? How?